is a medley of two dances. The first one, well, there's some more arguing going on, but when people argue, they usually end up agreeing on a few things. So I'll talk about the few things that are agreed upon for our next dance. The first of the two dances, well, they both come from Scotland. That's one thing everybody agrees on. The first of the two dances is called the Canadian Barn Dance. So now you're starting to understand what's a Canadian barn got to do with Scotland. Well, I don't know, but there's another thing that people agree on, and it kind of explains a little bit. It has something to do with a place here called Nova Scotia, which means New Scotland. So I'm going to tell you some blarney, and I warn you, I have not kissed the blarney stone, so you don't have to believe it if you don't want to. But it's a clever story. It's about my travels in Scotland. While I was traveling through Scotland, lucky for me, I saw a rainbow. And I did what everybody's thinking. I followed that rainbow in hopes that there was a pot of gold at the end of that rainbow. I came across this barn, and the rainbow ended right inside that barn. I broke into that barn. Pretty sure this guy owned that barn. So I break into his barn, and I find the leprechaun's pot of gold. It was the leprechaun's, it wasn't yours. So I go over to retrieve my pot of gold now, and this leprechaun pops out of nowhere and starts screaming and yelling at me. And I said, whoa, 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 hold on a minute. What are you doing in Scotland? So he tells me this whole story about how he got there. He started off in Ireland, which is where all leprechauns start off. And he's looking for a good place to hide his pot of gold, and he could not find any good place in Ireland. And it makes sense. Everyone's looking for gold in Ireland. So he decided to take a rainbow and take his pot of gold over the rainbow all the way to Canada. In Canada, he found a barn. And he put his pot of gold in that barn and said, still too easy. Somebody's going to come across my gold. I got to hide it in a better place. So he took that Canadian barn with its pot of gold over another rainbow all the way to Scotland. And that's where I come in. And I found that pot of gold. And yes, he reported me to the police. And so my pot of gold was confiscated as evidence. Which is why we're both poor now. See, we could have worked a deal. So, that's a little bit of blarney. But what isn't blarney is what I know about our second dance. It's called the Gay Gordons. And the Gordons were a fighting clan, and they were not to be trifled with. The Gordons were fierce and ready for fight all the time. The best way to describe the Gordons is with another movie. Have you guys seen Braveheart? Yes. Okay, remember that heroic speech William Wallace gives before the men go off to fight? Yes. Okay, well, if the Gordons were at that battle, they wouldn't be standing around wasting time listening to some guy finish talking before they went into battle. They'd be halfway down the field ready to fight. And then later on in the movie, you'll see a hilltop. On top of that hill, you'll see a row of Scotsmen. Remember that scene? They're all wearing kilts. They lift their kilts to the enemy. Yeah. If the Gordons were there, they would not waste time putting on kilts. They would be rushing the enemy with nothing on but paint. Yeah. Pretty scary, huh? She's like, no, bring them on. Well, to most of their enemies, it was scary enough to pack your stuff and go back home. But in this dance, there's a part where we'll be going up and down the long hall, and the girls will be spinning in front of us, and that part reminds me of the Gordons charging into battle. And what better weapon than a spinning lady in front of you? So here we go off to the Canadian barn dance and the Gay Gordons. And by the way, gay used to mean to be fierce and brave.